Welcome back. You're watching Clair and Port Huron's Today's Health, and our program today is on drug and substance abuse. And in this segment, we're going to be talking with Lieutenant Matt King. He is from the St. Clair County Sheriff's Department. Lieutenant King, welcome to our program.
Glad to be here.
What are some of the issues surrounding law enforcement and drug and substance abuse?
Well, the problems with substance abuse create problems throughout our whole community, not just the people who are addicted to the drugs. We find that many other criminal activity are circled around drugs. You're breaking in of cars, your robberies, breaking out of houses. These people are desperate. They're desperate acts to be able to do something like that. Usually it's revolved around drug activity, addiction. And so we find that even though maybe a certain part of our community in St. Clair County doesn't have a lot of users, they're being victimized by users and drug dealers. So it's a broad scope.
What are some of the top street drugs?
Currently, the biggest problems in this county is methamphetamine, as well as heroin and prescription opioid pills. We still have a lot of crack cocaine as well. So we've found an influx of new problems with the methamphetamine and heroin. Years ago, we didn't have these problems. The methamphetamine brings unique problems in the fact that they have people are making the meth using meth labs. So instead of just dealing with the drug and the people, we have this hazardous material we have to clean up afterwards as well. And with the heroin, there's been a huge uptick in overdoses. Thankfully, we have Narcan in our community and our EMS does a very good job when they get to the victims of these overdoses. However, not everyone makes it, and the overdose rates and deaths are up over the last several years. And
so these are issues that are actually changing because of the drugs that are the top street drugs now.
Yes, for years when the Drug Task Force was first established, the big issue was crack cocaine, as well as some other drugs. Approximately 6 to 8 years ago, we found a huge uptick in opioid pill being sold on the street as a drug to get high instead of being used as it was prescribed. Once these people got addicted to the opioid pills and couldn't get the pills anymore, they moved on to heroin to feed their addiction. That came about probably 5 to 6 years ago, and I was out of the Drug Task Force at the time, and I remember there wasn't hardly any heroin around, and all of a sudden there was a big explosion. Well, that trailed after the prescription pill abuse problem took place. And like I said, the methamphetamine problem has come into our community. The state of Michigan has a huge problem with the meth labs, and that is also an issue here in St. Clair County.
Who's most likely to be involved in drug and substance abuse and the activities surrounding it?
It's a broad scope. The scary thing with the opioid painkiller addiction is that people of all ages are being prescribed these drugs legitimately for pain problems, and they become addicted to them. Not everybody, but when they do become addicted to them, their body is dependent on the opioids, and they can switch over to heroin. Also, we see problems with young kids today when they go to these gatherings with their friends, a party, or whatever you want to call it. Oftentimes, instead of the days of old of hoping your kids didn't bring a case of beer to the party, they're getting into grandma or mom and dad's medicine cabinet and bringing these pills, introduce them to the other kids. So the problem is with the opioid painkillers and the heroin uptick is it's a growing population of addicts. The methamphetamine was introduced, it's been around for a while, but the easier way to cook the methamphetamine and it being introduced through the internet and people learning how to cook it has made that problem grow tremendously as well. So it's really a broad scope from young people and all different walks of life.
Well, I see you have this really helpful board here that's going to help explain to us some of the drugs that are being used. So can you kind of review a few of this?
Yes, the board here shows a broad scope of drugs, but you can see up here is an example of narcotic drugs. There's several opioid painkillers. Like I said, they're being prescribed for the right reasons and either falling in the hands of the wrong people or being overused and sometimes overprescribed. And then they move on to the heroin to feed their addiction, which you can see up at the top is an example of a syringe and some utensils used to ingest the heroin. Cocaine and crack cocaine still a problem in our county. The crack cocaine is the rock form that is smoked through what you can see here is we refer to as a crack pipe. They also can snort it and ingest it. Crystal methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin can all be shot through a syringe, smoked, or ingested. There's other examples here with marijuana, inhalants, alcohol. So the problem's broad, and when they get mixed together, it seems to cause more addiction and more problems with not knowing what people's behavior is going to be once they're on these drugs. So it's a growing problem in our community, and unfortunately, we're trying to keep a lid on it, but it's difficult at this point.
What can concerned adults, parents, grandparents do to kind of help with this problem?
Well, being aware, keeping track of your prescription pills is very important. If you're prescribed a narcotic painkiller, an opioid painkiller, make sure that you lock your medicine up. Don't put it in the medicine cabinet. Make sure you're keeping track of these pills. And when you're done with them, make sure that you contact your local pharmacist or police agency. The Sheriff's Department does drug take-back, where you can drop off any prescription drugs or any drugs that you don't want anymore, over-the-counter drugs, and we'll properly dispose them through the DEA program. Pay attention to behaviors, especially with younger kids, teenagers. Are their groups of friends drastically changing? Are their attitudes changing? Are their hours they're keeping changing? Are they not keeping up with their responsibilities? Are they using a lot of products to mask bloodshot eyes or bad breath? You just pay attention to what's going on. Look in their room, make sure they don't have anything they shouldn't have. But it's important to keep track of what you can control, which is your prescription drugs, and your young ones, keep an eye on them.
More to talk about. We're going to talk more about how you might spot a problem, but first we're going to take a break.
Okay.